All right, so one of the concepts that we covered throughout the chapter, we're still going to cover a little bit more of it, is what made the West so wild. Well, the opposite question is what ended the Wild West, right? So, multiple choice question, ending of the Wild West. You can have some kind of question about that. Basically, what ended it, okay? Overproduction of cattle. So, with the Chicago stockyards booming, what ended up happening is ranchers out west all wanted to get in on it. So they just produced millions and millions and millions of cows. They're just like dollars, yo. It's like inflation. The more you have of something, the less it's worth, right? If I have 1,000,000 cows, they're not as valuable individually as if I had one cow, okay? So too many cows, that's one thing, okay? Overgrazing and competition with sheep herders for land. So the cowboys herded cows, they herded sheep, and there was too much grazing going on, and what it did is it stripped large sections of the Great Plains of their vegetation, and deserts began to grow in the Great Plains. Some of that damage really still hasn't been recovered, from that time period. It permanently turned some of those places into deserts. All right, natural disasters. To make it worse with the overgrazing, we have the drought of 1883 on the Great Plains. So on the whole Great Plains, basically, it didn't rain for about a year. So if there's no rain and you got a bunch of cows and sheep that are eating all the vegetation, that's going to increase the desertification of that area. The blizzard of 1877 bankrupted many ranchers. A massive storm came down in 1877 from Canada into the northern Great Plains, okay? We're talking about like South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, and Wyoming, all right? It covered 4 states in up to 20 feet of snow, and it lasted for weeks. Now, think about this. Let's say you have millions of cows in those 4 states. Well, if it's negative 40 for 2 weeks outside, what's going to happen to the cows? I mean, you're going to have a bunch of cow popsicles, basically. So this wiped out the herds in 4 states. And these guys had a choice. Do I build my herd back, or do I just leave and give up? And a lot of them chose to leave and go to cities after that, which made that area, the northern Great Plains, kind of desolate. And even if you go there today, there's really not that many people that live in that part of the country. Not just because of that, but also because of the cold, okay? So the big nail in the coffin, in my opinion, for the Wild West was when Joseph Glidden invented barbed wire. Now that sounds weird, that would be the end of the Wild West. But remember, we had the long drive, right? That went from San Antonio to Sedalia, Missouri, and then to Abilene later on, okay? That's called the Chisholm Trail. Well, the thing was, barbed wire fences in property. You know this. Think about how many barbed wire fences you pass on the way to school. Or if you drive to Lafayette, how many barbed wire fences are you going to pass? Well, if you fence in all of America, basically, with barbed wire, how can you have a cattle drive? How can you drive thousands of cattle across 1,000 miles? You can't. It's over, okay? So barbed wire in 1874, when it was invented, Joseph Glidden made 10,000 pounds, okay, in that first year. 4 years later, he sold 27 million pounds of it. And that rate continued to grow and grow and grow until it was billions of pounds of barbed wire, okay? So those are some of the causes of the end of the Great Depression, okay? Not Great Depression, excuse me, the Wild West. All right, so let's talk a little about mining and farming. That's our next section. Multiple choice question: mining opens new territory in states and towns, okay? So mining is one factor that drove a lot of people out west. All these gold strikes, the 1849 California gold rush, Deadwood, that was a gold strike. Pikes Peak, we have Tombstone, Arizona, that's silver, okay? Anyway, so a new town pops up around this mine, right? Thousands of people flood in, but miners cannot survive by themselves, okay? You cannot eat gold. So people use the Homestead Act, which is that 160 free acres that you get, for living on the land for 5 years. A lot of farmers just went out west and said, you know what, miners got to eat. So I'm going to put my farm, my homestead, right next to a mining community, and I'm going to grow food and sell it to them at an inflated cost. So like a can of peaches, would cost like, I don't know, 50 cents. That's what it costs today, right? So back then, that's like $50 for a can of peaches, the people that were really getting rich off of the mines were some very lucky miners, but also the ranchers that were selling them beef, and the farmers that were selling them vegetables and fruit. Okay. So let's see. Mining opens new territory for settlers who get their food from local farmers and ranchers. Therefore, farming and ranching grew in the West largely because of mining. Okay. So why did it grow? It's because of mining. Some of the mining states, we got Colorado, Arizona, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. None of those would have been states without mining. That's why people moved there. Famous mining towns: Tombstone, Arizona. That's where Wyatt Earp was in the last video. Deadwood. That's where Wild Bill Hickok got shot in the head. Okay, we talked about that. Virginia City. That's a silver city. And Pikes Peak is a mining strike near Denver, Colorado. Okay, Pikes Peak was very famous for its gold and silver, by the way. Anyway, so moving on. Okay, the only state out west, and this is one of the focus of one of the questions. You need to really pay attention to this note right here. Put a little star by it, whatever. Okay, so Utah was the only state out west that was not established for mining. It was established for religious freedom. Okay, so there was a guy named Brigham Young and another one named Joseph Smith. They founded the Mormon Church. Okay, now the Mormons are famous for being what's called polygamists. Polygamists, poly meaning many. Okay, polygamists believe that it's okay for a man to have more than one wife. So even today in the Mormon Church, unofficially, they practice polygamy in some sects of the Mormon, and that word was sects, okay, not sex, of the Mormon Church. So one guy can have multiple wives, okay? But anyway, so they started their church back east, okay, in the cities of America. Well, the people did not like what they were teaching. The people thought it was blasphemy. So Brigham Young, or Joseph Smith, I forget which one was the original founder, but whoever originally founded it, he actually claimed that he had found a third testament of the Bible, okay? And he found it out west in a cave or something like that, okay? Now, this book of the Bible was reportedly written by Jesus himself and stuck out in the middle of the desert in America, which, if you know anything about the Bible and its history, that makes no sense. Jesus never was on the continent of America while he was alive. So anyway, barring that, the people thought that this was blasphemy, so they were beating up Mormons in the city, and he said, you know what? We're going to pack everything up, and we're going to move so far out west that we're going to move outside of the United States. That's exactly what he did. He moves deep into Indian territory, and they settled next to what's called the Great Salt Lake, okay, which is the saltiest body of water in America. So they're still there today. A lot of Mormons live in Salt Lake City, Utah. If you go to Utah, that's basically what the state's based on. So for the test, I'm going to give you a list of states, okay? And I'm going to say which of the following states was not established for mining. So what's the answer? Okay, it's Utah. Remember that for the test, okay? All right. Ghost towns, okay? So whenever a mining town begins, the whole economy is based on gold or silver, okay? Everybody goes there and tries to get a piece of this gold or silver. Well, what happens when the mines dry up? Well, people leave and they go to a new one, okay? And they leave behind ghost towns. Now, either these are taken over by farmers or they're just left out there, okay? They're still out there today. You can go to ghost towns out west that nobody lives in and nobody has lived in for 100 years, I remember going to one of them out in California. Okay, there was this long dip down. It was right around Death Valley in California. You go down into this canyon about, I don't know, 400 feet in elevation, and there's just this little town in the middle of this big old pit. There was a jail, there was a convenience store, there was one guy that lived in the town, and there was no electricity. This guy owned the whole town and lived there and ran a convenience store. Okay. And by the way, it wasn't that convenient. And a convenience store without electricity, you know, he was trying to sell us some hot Cokes, okay? We didn't buy anything. But anyway, so they're pretty cool. If you go, most of the time you're welcome to go and walk through these ghost towns. It's very significant, very fun to do. So anyway, leave that alone. So ghost towns are created as mines dry up, but their existence attracts settlers who become ranchers and farmers. Now, one trick that they use for the Homestead Act. Now, this is really smart, okay? So you remember, in order to have a homestead, to get the 160 free acres, you have to live there 5 years and build a house, right? That's how you get your free acres. Well, what if you go out west and you find a ghost town, and then you claim one of the buildings in the ghost town as your homestead? Okay, nobody lives there, nobody owns it anymore. So they would go out, claim this one building, and then they end up owning the whole town after 5 years. So that was one smart thing that settlers used to do. So we have a picture of, this is Colorado. We got Pikes Peak in the background. I think it's back here, if I'm not mistaken. But this is from the 1800s. This is what it would have looked like, a colorized version of Pikes Peak, okay? All right.